In this video, I will show you step-by-step process on how to fill out New York State tax form. I will go through each and every pages. Let's begin. Page 1 covers the purpose and background of Form IT-2104 and explains why this form exists and when it must be used. Here, this means that New York does not rely on the federal W-4 to calculate state, city, or Yonkers withholding. So this form tells your employer how much tax to take out of your paycheck, and there is nothing you need to write on this page because it only explains that claiming more allowances lowers withholding, claiming fewer increases, that you cannot claim allowances for yourself or your spouse, that you should submit a new form when your life, income, or job changes, and that the 2026 version applies starting the 1st of January 2026. So page 1 is informational only and requires no entries. Page 2 explains special situations that affect how you will later calculate numbers, but again, you do not write anything on this page. Here it explains how dependents with income may need fewer allowances, how head of household filers with one job may later add allowances, how having multiple jobs or being married with both spouses working requires splitting or reducing allowances, how high income may require extra withholding using charts later in the form, and how non-wage income can require fewer allowances. So this page is guidance only and exists to tell you how to think before you start filling out the worksheet. Page 3 explains consequences and administrative rules and still has nothing for you to fill in. Here it means that if you under-withhold, you may owe tax, interest, and penalties, that you cannot use this form to claim exemption from withholding, and must use a separate exemption form if eligible, and that the boxes shown on this page are for employers only when they are required to submit copies to New York State. So as an employee, you do not complete anything on page 3. Page 4 is where the worksheet begins, and this is the first page where you actually calculate numbers. In part 1, line 6 asks for the number of dependents you will claim on your New York return, which means children or qualifying dependents only. So you put the number of dependents and do not include yourself or your spouse. Line 7 refers to the college tuition credit, which means if you expect to claim it, you put 1, and if not, you put 0. Line 8 refers to the New York State household credit. And again, you put 1 if you expect to claim it, or 0 if you do not. Line 9 refers to the real property tax credit. And you put 1 if you qualify, or 0 if you do not. Lines 10 through 12 each refer to credits that are worth 3 allowances, meaning the child and dependent care credit, the earned income credit, and the Empire State Child Credit. So for each credit you expect to claim, you put 3, and otherwise you put 0. Line 13 refers to the New York City School Tax Credit, which means if you will be a New York City resident for any part of the year, you put 2, and if not, you put 0. Line 14 refers to other credits not listed earlier, which means uncommon credits, like investment credits. So most people put 0, unless they know they qualify and have calculated the amount. Line 15 refers to head of household status with only one job, meaning if that applies, you put 2, and otherwise you put 0. Line 16 refers to federal adjustments to income, such as deductible IRA contributions, meaning you estimate the total dollar amount, divide it by 1,000, drop any fraction, and put that whole number. Line 17 applies only if your employer participates in the employer compensation expense program, meaning you complete part 3 and enter that result here. Otherwise, you put 0. Line 18 refers to itemized deductions, meaning if you will itemize, you complete part 2 and enter that number here, otherwise you put 0. Line 19 is the total, which means you add lines 6 through 18 and put that sum here, and this final number is what you later transfer to line 1 of the actual IT-2104 form. Still on page 4, part 2 applies only if you expect to itemize deductions. Here, line 20 means you enter your estimated New York itemized deductions. Line 21 means you enter the standard deduction amount based on your filing status from the table. Line 22 means you subtract line 21 from line 20, and if the result is negative, you put 0. And line 23 means you divide that result by 1,000, drop any fraction, and put that number, which flows back to line 18. If you do not itemize, you skip all of part 2 and enter 0 on line 18. Part 3 on page 4 applies only if your employer has elected into the employer compensation expense program. Here it means you calculate a special allowance related to that program using lines 24 through 28. And if this does not apply to you, you skip the entire section and enter 0 on line 17. Part 4 on page 4 calculates New York City allowances. Here, line 29 means you re-enter the number of dependents from line 6. Line 30 means you add lines 15 through 18. And line 31 means you add lines 29 and 30. And this final number is what you later transfer to line 2 of the IT-2104 form. Pages 5 through 7 contain additional withholding charts, and these pages are only used in specific situations. Here, this means if you are married with both spouses working, or married with one spouse working multiple jobs, and your combined wages exceed $107,650, you use these charts to find an extra dollar amount that should be withheld each pay period. You adjust the amount if you are paid biweekly or monthly, and you enter that dollar amount on line 3 of the IT-2104 form. And if you do not meet these conditions, you skip all of these pages entirely. Page 8 contains similar charts, but applies to single or head of household taxpayers with more than one job. Here this means if your combined wages exceed $107,650, you use these charts to calculate additional withholding and enter the result on line 3. And if you have only one job or earn below the threshold, you skip this page. After completing the worksheet and charts, you complete the actual IT-2104 certificate by transferring the numbers. Here, this means the total from worksheet line 19 goes on line 1. The total from worksheet, line 31 goes on. Line 2, any additional withholding from the charts goes on. Line 3, you check the correct filing status box, you sign and date the form, and you give it to your employer, which completes the process. To wrap it up, the key thing to remember is that this form is not about filing your taxes, but about getting your paycheck withholding as close as possible to what you'll actually owe. So once you understand what each page is doing and carefully translate your worksheet numbers onto the final IT-2104, you're done. There you go. Like and subscribe if this video is helpful.